go. Right. Now, Tom sent me an email over the weekend saying that he'd modelled this Mars base, and it's looking really good, Tom. Well done. But he was running into problems with UVing and texturing. Like, he was getting really bad resolution, and it was proving difficult to get the textures to look good. So if I bring up the UV editor and I select this model here, and we put this little checkerboard symbol here. This I can't remember if I showed you the other week. This little checkerboard symbol, I did. I know I did. This checkerboard symbol is to show you how good your UVs are, really. So if you put this on, the ideal situation is not this. The ideal situation is lots and lots of really quite small, perfectly square little squares, just sort of wrapped, draped all over your object. That's how you want your UVs to look. That's, but at the moment, obviously, Tom's running into a bit of a problem, and it's looking like this. And it's a simple solution, and it's going to save you so much time. It's going to make your texturing so much easier as well. I kind of told Tom in the email, but I'll just demo it. Now, the main problem here is it's just trying to UV. It's trying to UV and texture too much, all in one go. You want to break this stuff down. You want to look for repetition. So if I look at this model, I can see what's something that's repeating over and over again, these tower kind of things, right? So you want to treat these tower things as their own separate object that you UV and then you texture in Substance. Because if you do one, then all you have to do is then duplicate it in Maya several times and repositioning it. If you're trying to do the whole thing, you're trying to UV this whole thing all in one go, then that single square here has to cover all of it, the entire object. There's just not enough resolution to do it in. So the way around this is to just take a good, careful look at your object. Also, to be honest, there are, well, actually, this is slightly asymmetrical, so maybe it'd be a bit difficult. But one thing that's definitely separate are these towers. I would maybe cut this bit off, this little tower bit here, do that separately. See this big mass of stuff here? I'm discounting this kind of tubey vent type thing. I would do that separately, and then I would do this bit separately. But I would do, yeah, so what I would do is I would take this model Tom, I would select the polygons that make up one tower and extract them, like that. Now UV just this object. So if I go to object mode and just make sure that's in object mode, hold on, hang on, I've got to do this again. Why didn't it extract properly? Extract. Let's come up with an error. Only works on polygonal objects. Hang on. This isn't. I thought this was a polygonal object. Hang on. Well, I'll do it again. I'll show you what I mean. Actually, you've got a bunch of. Right, if I select this, go to faces. Actually, something screwy might be going on here, Tom. If it's not letting me extract this object, I tell you what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to freeze the whole thing. Freeze that as well. So that's definitely a polygon. Select that. There we go. That's better. So I've extracted this kind of tower object. I'm going to select that little tower object, and I'm only going to UV that. So I'm just going to go to automatic unwrapping, like that. Let's have a look at the UVs now. They should look a bit better. There we go. So do the whole layout thing. Take that into Substance. Texture all that. Bring it back into Maya. And then, when it's looking all good, then you just duplicate it and copy it to there, to there, to there. This is the thing, you see. I think I did mention this, but I want to just hammer it home because I know that people are going to do this. And it's going to take a couple of goes of me going, don't do this, before it sinks in. Don't try and necessarily build your object all as one thing, as one massive, great big object. Now, if you were games artists, even games artists, to be honest, you're going to want to what they call modularize your modeling as much as possible. You want to break it down into the sensible, logical bits. Texture, make sure everything looks good on that bit, and then repeat it and copy it and duplicate it. So that's what I wanted to talk about there. Anyone got any questions about that? Does that seem like a logical way of doing it? because I know, because some people are like building. George, are you listening to this bit? Yeah. Because I know that last year exactly the same kind of thing happens. There's this weird temptation to just make one massive, great big single polygonal object that's your entire Mars base. And that's just, as you can see just here, that's a potential recipe for disaster, because it's just a nightmare to UV, and you've got like one 2000 pixel across texture that has to cope with the whole object. And as I'm going to show you a bit later, as concept artists, this isn't just an intro to CG thing. You do want to create obviously a nice looking image, otherwise the whole thing's pointless. Because then at one point you're going to put your camera, maybe you're going to go, oh my god, it just looks so epic if I put the camera just there, oh, like this. So you've got, even with a 2K texture, so it's 2000 pixels across, all those pixels have to be spread out from stuff that's way back there, and also just here. Whereas if you break stuff up and individually texture it, then you can have that whole tower could get its 2000 pixel sort of resolution texture to itself, and so it will look super sweet and nice. And in fact, you know, for the stuff in the background, you might not even need to do a 2000 pixel cross texture. You could do a 1000 pixel cross texture, because you'd be nowhere near it, you know, so it doesn't need as much detail. I know that it's a bit of a strange way of thinking when you're coming at it from a purely arty point of view, and you've suddenly got to start to think of things in a more logical, techie kind of way. But you just got to get around to that way of thinking. But don't worry about it, because that's about as techie as it kind of gets. It's just being a bit sensible and looking how much screen space, or they sometimes call real estate, screen real estate, does that thing take up? You know, if it takes up a huge amount of the frame, then it should have more resolution in its texture. If it takes up a teeny weeny amount, then it needs less resolution. Okay, so I thought that was interesting and hopefully useful to show you. So I'm going to stop this now because I want to do a separate one for the lighting part of this talk.